This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Nebyat, and today we have a fun episode to talk about for you folks at home. We obviously had the NFL Draft. The first round happened yesterday, and the second round will be happening on Friday, and the third round will be happening on Friday as well, and the draft will be underway for the next weekend, and then it will end on Monday, May 5th. So with that, a lot of picks to talk about. Talk about who went where and what teams got the steals of the draft and what teams kind of took a risk and a leap of faith. But before any of that, to talk about some other stuff that's been happening around sports, you also had Kevin Porter Jr., the small forward for the Houston Rockets, dropping 50 points on the Milwaukee Bucks, who sit third overall in the Eastern Conference, and the Rockets being known as one of the worst teams in the NBA, and is the worst team in the NBA by their record, 16-47. Have only won 25% of their games this season. Had a career high from their starting small forward, and a late pickup and in a trade with the Cleveland Cavaliers. The Cleveland Cavaliers dropped Kevin Porter Jr. And he eventually moved on to better things with Houston. Cleveland just having too many young guards in their team and their program. So Kevin Porter Jr., who was facing some suspension on some criminal charges and that stuff. Nothing too severe or anything to really keep him out of the league for the rest of his career, but he was suspended for most of this season. But that was a big headline, and also a headline on Friday was that LeBron James is questionable to return to the Los Angeles Lakers lineup versus the Sacramento Kings on Friday. And if he does not play on Friday, I'm looking at my sources, and I'm told that that if he doesn't play, then he will play in Sunday's matchup. That will be against the Lakers will play against the Toronto Raptors on Sunday. So if LeBron doesn't play Friday, April 30th against Sacramento, he will play Sunday, May 2nd against Toronto. And then after Toronto, the Lakers will be playing Denver, the Clippers, and Portland. But before any of that, to talk about obviously the NFL draft and LeBron's return. You also have Aaron Rodgers' situation with the Packers that I'm going to get into during the podcast. And also I'm going to bring to you guys NBA Power Rankings. This has become a casual thing on my podcast, and I'm starting to like it the more we head into the postseason. And I'm going to be bringing that to you folks at the end of this segment, or at the end of this podcast, more rather. But without further ado, let's get into the NFL draft and some of the headlines in the first round. So before I go into what players went where in NFL draft, I just want to briefly mention my top 12 picks and kind of analyze what picks changed and what picks I got right. I'll be honest. Didn't get many picks right. Definitely got a lot wrong. Didn't expect some teams to trade up and trade down in the draft. That was one thing I completely underestimated. But without further ado, here were my top 12 picks in this year's first round of the NFL draft. With the first pick, I had Trevor Lawrence. Obviously, no shocker there. Quarterback out of LSU, Clemson. And then after that, with the Jets, I had the Jets taking Justin Fields. I thought Fields would be a great addition to the Jets with his athleticism, his work ethic, and everything. I thought he would be a great position there. And then after that, I had Mac Jones going to the 49ers. Then I had Kyle Pitts going to the Falcons. This was another pick I got right. Didn't get the Jets or the 49ers pick right. And then I had Penny Sewell going to the Bengals. And then I had Devontae Smith going to the Dolphins. Jamar Chase going to the Lions. Zach Wilson going to the Panthers. Rashawn Slater going to the Denver Broncos. Patrick Surtain II going to the Dallas Cowboys. Micah Parsons, an inside linebacker out of Penn State, going to the New York Giants. And then the Eagles getting Jalen Waddle. Now, here's what happened on draft night, and here's the results in the first 12 picks in NFL draft. And also, I'm going to be mentioning some other picks outside of the top 12, obviously going from the 13th all the way to the 32nd pick. So, without further ado, here are the top 12 picks in the NFL draft this year in the first round. The Jacksonville Jaguars got Trevor Lawrence as expected. Zach Wilson is going to the Jets. The Jets picked him as the second overall pick. The 49ers picked Trey Lance, quarterback out of North Dakota State. The Atlanta Falcons picked Kyle Pitts. The Cincinnati Bengals picked Jamar Chase. The Miami Dolphins picked Jalen Waddle. The Lions picked Penny Sewell. The Panthers got J.C. Horn, a cornerback out of South Carolina. The Broncos got Patrick Surtain II. The Eagles traded up from Dallas to get Devontae Smith. Chicago traded with the Giants. They got Justin Fields as their quarterback. And then from San Francisco through Miami and to Philadelphia, the Dallas Cowboys got that pick from Philadelphia in that whole situation and got Micah Parsons, inside linebacker. There's some other notable picks that I thought were either good or kind of a reach and kind of unexpected, so to say, was the Chargers getting Rashawn Slater. I thought that was a huge get for them and really building their offense around Justin Herbert and trying to keep him as healthy as possible. Then the Patriots got Mac Jones, and then the Raiders got Alex Leatherwood, offensive tackle out of Alabama. A lot of people had him going into the second round, but Raiders took a chance and picked him in first. Then 18th overall, Jalen Phillips, D-end out of Miami. He was the first D-end picked in this NFL draft and was picked 18th overall. A lot of people say this is a risk, but I think Phillips definitely has a really high ceiling and a high reward for that pick as well, because the Dolphins not only got Jalen Phillips, but they also got Jalen Waddle. So they got two really big guys on both sides of the ball, offense and defense. Jalen Waddle being on the offensive side and Jalen Phillips obviously being on the defensive side are two really good picks for the Dolphins in the first round. I salute to my Dolphins fans out there. Huge get in the first round. And then the Pittsburgh Steelers picked Najee Harris, running back out of Alabama, the first running back pick in the draft. And then the pick after that, the Jacksonville Jaguars picked a running back, Travis Etienne, running back out of Clemson, who played alongside Trevor Lawrence. So those are all the picks that I saw that were big in the draft and could have big effects going into next year. But some questions that I should really bring light to and should answer at this moment are 3 and 4 big questions. The First one being how will Justin Fields do for the Chicago Bears? How high is Trey Lance's ceiling? Devontae Smith, is he a perfect fit to the Eagles? And then Jamar Chase to the Bengals, is that a risk? So let's talk about Justin Fields and how he will do for the Chicago Bears. If you're a Bears fan and you're listening to this, listen to what I found about Fields before the draft. So Matt Nagy taught Justin Fields about the Bears' offensive formations during the pre-draft process and everything, meeting with different prospects and everything. Nagy asked Fields last night before the draft if he remembered about one of the formations he talked about, and Fields remembered it perfectly and told him everything about it. So with this, let's quickly review the Bears' situation at quarterback right now and just how the division is looking as well. When you look at their quarterback situation right now, you have Justin Fields, who just got drafted. You have Andy Dalton, who they just picked off of free agency. Then you also have Nick Foles, who they've had for the long haul this season. The Bears obviously last year made the postseason but lost to the Saints in the first round, 21-9. But when you look at their roster right now, I mean, with Fields and their depth chart and everything, you have David Montgomery and Tariq Cohen at first and second string running backs. You have Allen Robinson, Darryl Mooney, Anthony Miller, Marquise Goodwin, Javon Wims, and Riley Ridley to work with. Also, you have Cole Kempt as a tight end and Jimmy Graham as a backup tight end for you guys. So with that, I mean, it's definitely a great group of guys to work with. I think that as soon as Justin Fields gets implemented into that system, I feel like he'll be a great addition to that team. But as it stands right now, I feel like if the season were to start tomorrow, I feel like Andy Dalton would be the starting quarterback of this team. Just because they brought him in free agency, coming from Dallas, and him having to be the starter after the Dak Prescott injury. Truly a gruesome injury. I hope Dak for the best. Seems like he's on a great recovery process. But with that, you also have Nick Foles as well as a third-string quarterback. Him obviously winning a Super Bowl for the Philadelphia Eagles, their first in their franchise, is definitely someone you can't ignore. And when you look at the situation right now, the Bears now have Justin Fields as their future starter. That's without a question. He's going to be a future starter for that franchise, whether that's this year or next year or the year after that. At some point in time, Justin Fields will be the starting quarterback for this Bears team, and you can't convince me otherwise. And with Andy Dalton as their quarterback one, until Fields is ready, Dalton will be the quarterback until Fields gets implemented into the system. He gets a feel of how the NFL is. And when you think about this, you also think about Nick Foles. And on his contract, it will be extremely difficult to move him because he has $4 million guaranteed this year and $5 million guaranteed next year. So either way, Foles is getting his money, and it will be very, very difficult to move him. But with that, you also look at how Foles has made his way into the NFL and how he has progressed and everything. I feel like he would be the second string quarterback for this team. Justin Fields being behind him, because if you think about it, you just have to go off of experience. I know Justin Fields is talented. I know he's hardworking. I know he's an elite quarterback at his level, and it's definitely going to take some time for him to get used to this system, because when you already have two quarterbacks that have already made a name for themselves in this league, you're definitely going to be looked at as the third or second string quarterback. You're not going to be regarded as a first string quarterback right away unless you had just an amazing last season. But with that, I absolutely love this pick for the Bears. I hope that Justin Fields one day will get a start for this Bears team, and whether that's this year, next year, or the year after that, whenever it is going to happen, and I can't wait for that game. Hopefully it's not against the Bengals, because I know he'll probably throw like 20 touchdowns against us. But with that, let's go into the next topic and talk about how high of a ceiling Trey Lance has. Now, this was probably the biggest in my opinion, the biggest surprise in the draft, because when you look at how Trey Lance really started off in North Dakota State, you wouldn't think that a quarterback like that would get drafted by a team like the 49ers. But the 49ers have had problems in the past with Jimmy Garoppolo, and I know a lot of Niners fans have been wanting for a new quarterback. I know a lot of people have been wanting for change in that organization. So with Lance, out of all these quarterbacks in the draft between Lawrence, Wilson, Mac Jones, Fields, I think that Lance definitely has the highest ceiling out of any of them, which means he has the most room to improve. So with that, I mean, you also look at the people that he'll be working with for the 49ers in that depth chart. You obviously have Jimmy Garoppolo, who might be the starting quarterback week one. You never know, but you have Raheem Mostert, Deebo Samuel, who's an absolute beast, Brandon Ayuk, who's coming off of a electric rookie year and should be a force to be reckoned with next year. Also, you have one of the best tight ends in George Kittle. You have Richie James as well as your third-string quarterback, and a great coach in the 49ers organization, and Kyle Shanahan. So with this, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how the 49ers do this year with a 6-10 record last year. They're also in one of the toughest divisions in football right now, with the Seahawks, the Rams, the L.A. Rams, and the Arizona Cardinals in that division. And all those teams made big gets in free agency. You had, obviously, the Cardinals drafting or trading for J.J. Watt and picking up J.J. Watt. They also got A.J. Green. They got a Malcolm Butler. And they also got a really good offensive lineman from the Raiders, too. They also got James Conner from the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then on the other side, for the LA Rams, you got Aaron Donald, Matthew Stafford, who they just got. And also with the Seahawks, Russell Wilson, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett and company. It's definitely going to be interesting to see how this move will affect the franchise moving forward. And then next question, or I didn't really answer that question about Trey Lance. Oh no, I did. I said Lance has the highest and got any quarterback. Okay, next question. Devontae Smith to the Eagles. Is he a perfect fit? Absolutely. I think that this pick was probably the biggest deal in this draft. People really talk about and criticize how small and how skinny Devontae Smith is, but man, he's working with Jalen Hurts, quarterback out of Alabama. They both went to Alabama. I'm sure that they're going to love playing together. Something interesting that I saw about this year's draft, you see Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, former teammates, Tua Tagovailoa, and Jalen Waddle teaming up together, and there was one more. Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne also teaming up together. A lot of teams deciding to pair people with their former teammates or past teammates, and I love this idea. I think this was a great idea for the Philadelphia Eagles, because when you look at it and you look at the criticism that Devontae Smith has got. You look at a player like Deshaun Jackson, for example, a player in the Eagles franchise that really cemented his legacy as a dominant wide receiver, a really long ball threat. And with Devontae Smith, if you're going to judge his weight, you also got to judge the weight of the average quarterback or safeties that he'll be going against. And they're really not that, there's not that much of a weight difference between an average starting cornerback and Devontae Smith. And that's something, as if you're an Eagles fan and if you're listening to this, it's not that big of a deal, man. You guys got a great get in Devontae Smith, Heisman winner. He's only going to do great things for that franchise, man. And it's really idiotic to say that just because of his weight and his size that he's not going to become a great wide receiver. And next question, and the final question of this draft was Jamar Chase to the Bengals a risk? Because obviously, if you know, I'm a Bengals fan. If not, now you know. Joe Burrow obviously having one of the worst injuries that you could possibly see in football with his knee. Obviously having multiple or a lot of damage on that knee. You know, having season-ending surgery. Probably won't start the first couple of games this season. I will be surprised if he does. But he should obviously take his time into getting back into shape and making sure that he is 100% healthy before running onto that gridiron. I think that this was a coin flip between Jamar Chase and Penny Sewell. This was, in my opinion, the hardest pick in the draft, right behind the 49ers, because you didn't really know what the 49ers would really pick between Mac Jones and Trey Lance. They loved Trey Lance's pro day and everything. They talked to his family and everything, and seemed to go well since they drafted him. But but when you look at the other side on the Bengals, it was pretty much given that they were going to draft Jamar Chase just based off of their decisions. Picking up a Thaddeus Moss out of who got drafted by Washington, I believe, but then got dropped, and we picked him up as the Bengals. And also, Joe Burrow also said that he would love to reunite with his former teammate Jamar Chase. And one thing that I loved about Jamar Chase after draft was that he apparently told reporters that he's going to break every record that they got at the Bengals. And I quote, "I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to break every record they have. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but it's going to get done." And when you look at this, you also look at what other wide receivers the Bengals have. Obviously, last year in the second round of the draft, they got T. Higgins, a great get in the second round. Then you also have Tyler Boyd, who's also been in there, a great slot wide receiver for the most part. And this is an elite receiving core right now for the Bengals. And with that, a great get. But if you're a Bengals fan, you should also be looking at the rest of this draft right now. This draft is not over by a long shot. The Bengals do have the 6th overall pick in the second round. And in the third round, they have the 5th overall pick. So with those two picks, it's going to be interesting to see when they will pick an offensive lineman. But I assume that they will pick an offensive lineman in the second round. And I will be surprised if they don't do that otherwise. Because at the end of the day, you got to protect Joe Burrow and you got to protect that knee. Because you took a huge risk with not drafting Penny Sewell. I don't want to say he is a once-in-a-lifetime prospect, a once-in-a-generational talent, so to say, whatever. But I'm gonna be rooting for him at the Lions because I really wanted him. I think he's gonna have a great career, but with the Lions, it's definitely gonna take some time for them to rebuild that franchise after you just got rid of Matthew Stafford, you bring in Jared Goff, and you lose Kenny Galladay to free agency. So definitely gonna be tough to see the Lions back in the playoffs anytime soon. But with that, that's going to be it for the first segment. Obviously, a lot of headlines for this NFL draft. Trevor Lawrence, obviously, first overall pick. No one was surprised about that. Zach Wilson going second. Trey Lance going third to the 49ers. Zach Wilson going to the Jets. Kyle Pitts going to the Falcons. Jamar Chase going to the Bengals. Jalen Waddle going to the Dolphins. Penny Sewell going to the Lions. Panthers getting Jalen Horn, J.C. Horn. Broncos getting Patrick Surtain the second. The Eagles getting Devontae Smith, moving up in the draft and getting that Dallas pick. And then you had Chicago getting Justin Fields from the New York Giants. And then you had the Dallas Cowboys getting Micah Parsons with that 12th overall pick. Then from then on, some other notable picks: Rashawn Slater going to the Chargers, 13th overall. 15th overall, Mac Jones going to the Patriots. 17th overall, Alex Leatherwood going to the Raiders. 18th overall, Jalen Phillips going to the Dolphins. 24th overall, Najee Harris going to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then 25th overall, the Jacksonville Jaguars taking Travis Etienne. So that will be it for the first segment of this podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Coming up next, I'm going to be talking about Aaron Rodgers' situation with the Green Bay Packers and how that situation could be in jeopardy. Stay tuned for that segment and more on the GSMC Podcast Network.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Hello and welcome back to the GSMC Sports Podcast Network. I am your host, Nebyat, and we just got done talking about the NFL Draft and what happened in the first round. Obviously, some big headlines. Obviously, Trevor Lawrence going first overall, not a surprise there for anyone. But some notable gets. The Patriots getting Mac Jones at the quarterback. Some people seeing shades of Tom Brady and Bill Belichick said on the record that he was going to be excited to coach a new quarterback again, new polished quarterback getting ready for the NFL. So seems like Belichick isn't really going anywhere anytime soon. And also, you also have Najee Harris going to the Steelers. That's another big get, especially late in the draft. We'll see how he does for them. Also, Devontae Smith going to the Eagles was also a great get as well. But without further ado, let's go and talk about this next segment on today's podcast, and that's Aaron Rodgers' situation with the Green Bay Packers. And right on draft day, on the first round yesterday, on April 29th, it was a crazy way to start off the draft. And reigning MVP Aaron Rodgers reportedly said that he was not happy with the Green Bay Packers and that he has told some people within the organization that he does not want to return to the team. And this raises so many red flags across the league, because when you look at what happened last year with the Packers, obviously them losing to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at their home field, and this so close to making the Super Bowl, in that goal line play, third and goal, and Rodgers obviously not running for it, and cost them a chance to go to the Super Bowl. It's something that I feel like hasn't really been talked enough about. Ever since then, we've seen him on Jeopardy for the most part, and he seems to be having fun on Jeopardy and everything. And with this report, when I saw this, it kind of reminded me of how NBA players want to be traded, so to say. And I'm not saying that this is a bad thing whatsoever for players to request for a trade and sit out, because when it's the other way around, and when it's the franchise, making the players sit and waiting for them to get a trade in for another team, people don't really say anything about that and expect them to be quiet. And I respect players for standing up for themselves and wanting to do whatever they want to do, and that's really the business side of this of sports. And when I saw that, I was just like, okay, maybe he'll sit out this season and kind of demand a trade, so to say. But the Green Bay Packers GM said that their GM said that they're not going to be trading Aaron Rodgers right when the draft ended on Thursday. So when I saw that, I was like, okay, so they're not trading for him, and Aaron Rodgers hasn't said anything else until this. So also another thing to be looking at as well is that there has never been an NFL MVP traded after their award in their previous season. The only MVPs not to return to their team in the season after winning their award were Norm Van Brocklin. He retired after winning the MVP in 1960, and then Jim Brown, who retired after winning the MVP in 1965. So with this, it doesn't seem like Rodgers will be sitting out. It seems like, if anything, he might retire, which is pretty shocking because he's not that old on the top of my head. He's not, in jeopardy or anything. When Tom Brady is still playing in the league, everyone seems young. But right now, Aaron Rodgers is 37 right now. He's going to be 38 this year. So he still has some, maybe a couple seasons left in him. But, after playing for Green Bay for 16 years, it might, get to you a little bit, might wear down your body. And we saw that with the Golden State Warriors and how after losing the 2019 championship to the Toronto Raptors, you saw Steph Curry get hurt. You saw Klay Thompson get hurt. It was truly, truly sad to see just a downfall of a dynasty, so to say. And the Packers really are a dynasty in the NFL, so to say. But with that, and to talk about some Packers quarterbacks, and just an interesting fact that I saw and found was that no Packers QB has played 17 seasons with the team. So Aaron Rodgers has played 16 seasons. Brett Favre has also played 16 seasons. And guess what? Bart Starr, you guessed it, has played 16 seasons as well. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see what the Packers do from here on out. You're already in the draft. You've already been on the record saying you're not trading Aaron Rodgers, but Aaron Rodgers obviously has been on the record saying that he has told people in the organization that he does not want to return to the team. And when you look at this, you look at the business side of things as well. Aaron Rodgers' agent, Dave Dunn, helped Carson Palmer shoot his way out of Cincinnati. Even if it took a while, he got the job done for Palmer, and he ended up going to Arizona. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see how Rodgers' agent, David Dunn, tries to get Rodgers out of the Pack or Green Bay. But when you look at this, you also think, okay, Carson Palmer did not win an MVP that year. If I'm pretty sure, I don't think he ever won an MVP for the Bengals. And when you look at this, Rodgers just won an MVP. So it's going to be very, very hard. And if the Packers do end up trading him, they're going to be expecting a boatload of picks and a boatload of talent. I will tell you that much. And I haven't really searched it at all, but I don't know what team would really, go all out for a guy like Rodgers. When you look at it, I thought about it, and just for like a minute or something, I thought that, I don't know, maybe the Saints get him just because Drew Brees retired, and he had Jameis Winston as a starter. You never know with Taysom Hill, but I expect Winston to start for that team. But you also have, along with that, Mike Thomas, Sean Payton as a coach, and you also have Alvin Kamara as a running back. So he will have some weapons to work with. I know for a fact that he would be having a better running back. I don't know about a better wide receiver. I don't know if Mike Thomas is better than Devontae Adams. I will say that Devontae Adams is a beast, and I think that he was the best wide receiver last year. You also think about DeAndre Hopkins, Stephon Diggs, Tyreek Hill and company. But it's going to be interesting to see what the Packers do. And If Rodgers retires or if he decides to host Jeopardy, he would have to repay the team 100 or $11.5 million this year and $11.5 million if he remains retired the year after that. All this money coming from his signing bonus. Unless this situation is repaired to his liking. Excuse me, I'll read that again. Unless the situation is repaired to his liking, this is a serious consideration for the Packers. And obviously, like I said, Packers GM Brian Gutekunst said that no, we're not going to trade Aaron Rodgers. But he also was on the record saying that Aaron Rodgers will be playing for Green Bay again. And he said that's the goal. And I quote, "He's our quarterback. He's our leader. We've been working through this for a while now. I just think it might take some time, but he's the guy that makes this thing go." And when you look, and when you think of the Green Bay Packers right now in this day and age, you think of Aaron Rodgers 100%. And I think that's a smart way to say if you're looking at it from this perspective of that GM. But when you look at the draft and you look at who the Packers got, they got Eric Stokes, a cornerback out of Georgia. Now, just to keep in mind, the Packers have been on the record to not draft people in order to help out Aaron Rodgers. With that, what I mean is that they really don't bring in players on the offensive side. They really only focus on the defensive side. But when you look at this, I mean, they got torched last year in the playoff game versus Tampa Bay because I believe Desmond King was his name, got picked apart in that conference game. And it really shows you that they're really trying to, improve in spots that they really need to improve in. But with that, you got to think about the situation at hand. Do you, pick players in position that you need, or do you pick players that, the best player on your franchise wants? So it's definitely a hard thing to think about in the grand scheme of things. But to me, if I'm a GM, I'm trying to help out my best player in any way, shape, or form I can, because at the end of the day, like the GM of the Packers said, this guy makes the whole thing go, meaning Aaron Rodgers. So he has to think about what Aaron's thinking at this moment. What does Aaron need? What does Aaron want? And he really needs to listen closely, because at the end of the day, Aaron Rodgers is one of the best quarterbacks in this league, and last year he proved it by winning that MVP. But it's definitely going to be interesting. And also to keep on going with this Rodgers situation, when Rodgers said last May, my sincere desire to start and finish with the same organization may not be a reality. It seemed he was putting on the notion or example on the Green Bay Packers to recommit to him, and it sounds like he doesn't even want that anymore. And with that, question arises: what does Green Bay do now? And like I said, Green Bay has been on the record to not draft people around Aaron Rodgers. Just like, for example, like the Bengals did this year. Like I said in my previous segment, the Bengals, really needed a player like Penny Sewell at the offensive tackle position, and they could move around players on the offensive line and try to help Joe Burrow and help him stay healthy. And same thing with the Green Bay Packers. They could, help out Aaron Rodgers, and they could, get him a star wide receiver in the draft or a star offensive lineman or something like that. I don't know, but whatever Aaron wants, you should automatically give it to him. Just like LeBron James or any other star athlete, saying that they want, a Andre Drummond, or they want, a Ndamukong Suh to return to the lineup. It's definitely something that Green Bay should be ashamed of doing, because it's just Aaron Rodgers is just such a generational talent nowadays. It's just his Hail Marys and everything. I've had him on my fantasy team for many years. Last year, he got me a third overall in my fantasy league, and I'm not going to say that third is better than first, but I'll take it at the end of the day. But what does Green Bay do now? I mean, they got to build around Rodgers with this draft, man. It's just after they got Eric Stokes for a cornerback, it really didn't seem like they were too focused on building around Aaron and, recommitting to Aaron just like he wanted to. And it doesn't even seem like Aaron's really interested in that anymore by that quote that I just read. And when you look at the other picks in the draft with the Green Bay Packers, they have the 30th overall pick, the 30th overall pick in the second round, the 29th overall pick in the third round, the 4th overall pick the 30th overall pick in the fourth round, the 37th overall pick in the fourth round, the 29th overall pick in the fifth round, 34th overall pick in the fifth round, 30th overall pick in the sixth round, and the 36th overall pick in the sixth round, and then finally you have the 29th pick in the seventh round. So you're going to have a lot of high picks in this draft, and with those high picks, you might be thinking, oh, maybe we want, a wide receiver, but when you look at all of these picks, high 30s, 30, 29, 30, 37, 29, 34, 30, 36, 29, the list just goes on and on and on. And there's not going to be that many great prospects and left and after rounds 2 through 3, are done, because rounds 4 through 7 will just be going by so quickly. But I mean, at this point, if you're a Packers fan and you're wondering what the Packers should do, I mean, the Packers should just do whatever Aaron Rodgers wants to do at the end of the day, because I mean, if you lose them, then you lose them. You can't help anything about that. But if you want any chance of him returning to the team, you do what he says 100%. Like I said before, it's like if LeBron James came up and said, you know what, and his situation with like the Anthony Davis trade, was a necessary situation because that got him a Super Bowl. And when you look at that, the Green Bay Packers should really follow suit, because you never know. Maybe if they got, I think there was a wide receiver out of LSU that's pretty good. That's still on the draft board. Let me see if I can find his name at the moment. But that's going to be a player to look at for sure. Terrence Marshall Jr. is his name. Maybe they'll get him. I don't know. Maybe they try to stack the running back position. They have a Trey Sermon still on the board. A Michael Carter, Javonte Williams, but those players should be taken off pretty quick. And same thing for Terrence Marshall Jr., who I thought that maybe they should have taken a reach on, or a Elijah Moore, for example. But obviously choosing a different route in getting a cornerback in the draft. But with that, that's going to be it for the second segment of today's GSMC Sports Podcast. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers' situation with the Green Bay Packers is in jeopardy. He has told some people in the organization that he does not want to return to the team, and that was confirmed on draft day, so that was confirmed on April Thursday, the 29th. So definitely going to be tough for the Packers to really try to get Aaron Rodgers back to the team and back to the Aaron Rodgers everyone knows and loves. But coming up next, I'm going to be talking about LeBron's possible return to the Lakers lineup. And then after that, I'm going to be talking about the NBA power rankings and who has made a big leap and who and what teams are really building their momentum into the playoffs. That's coming up next on the GSMC Sports Podcast.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Alrighty, welcome back to the GSMC Sports Podcast with your host, Nebyat. We are on the third segment of today's podcast. We got done talking about the first round of the NFL draft. Obviously, Trevor Lawrence going first overall, not a surprise by anyone. You also had Zach Wilson going number 2 and Trey Lance going number 3 to the 49ers. Trey Lance going to the 49ers, Zach Wilson going to the Jets. And then also some notable picks. Jamar Chase going to the Bengals, Kyle Pitts going to the Falcons, Penny Sewell going to the Lions, Devontae Smith going to the Eagles, and Mac Jones going to the Patriots. All some very good picks for their respective franchises, and I'm excited to see what this class can do, because this draft was actually the biggest televised class or draft class in the history of the NFL. So pretty interesting. And also I talked about Aaron Rodgers' situation with the Green Bay Packers right now. It is truly in jeopardy. The Packers, wanting their quarterback to come back to the team, but it really sounds like Rodgers doesn't really sound like he's ready to recommit to the Packers. There really hasn't been a concrete reason as to why Rodgers doesn't want to come back, other than he's not very happy with the organization, and that's really it. And I can't find anything else on it. But with that, let's go into the next segment of today's podcast, and the third segment, which is LeBron James' possible return to the Lakers lineup after missing pretty much a month of basketball with a high ankle sprain. So LeBron could return from his long absence of his career against the Sacramento Kings on Friday. If LeBron does sit out on Friday, he is likely to return as soon as Sunday against the Toronto Raptors. So when you look at this, let's look at the standings in the Western Conference right now and where the Lakers stand. They are 5th in the Western Conference. Doesn't seem like they're going to move up in the standings, but they certainly could move down, let me tell you. The Dallas Mavericks are only one game behind the Lakers for that 5th overall seed, and are currently sitting 6th right now, and have won a back-to-back against the Lakers, so that's crucial for a tiebreaker situation. And then you also have the Portland Trailblazers, who are only 2 games behind the Lakers, but the Trailblazers have been struggling lately, so I don't really see them jumping the Lakers, but the Mavericks do have a good chance. And the Blazers do too, but if I were to give my expert or professional opinion, I wouldn't say that the Blazers would jump the Lakers, because when you look at it, the past 6 games they are the past 7 games they are 2-5. They beat the Grizzlies in Memphis, and they beat the Pacers at Indiana. But the games before that, they lost to the Grizzlies by 3, lost to the Grizzlies by 2, lost to the Nuggets by 1, lost to the Clippers by 1, and lost to the Hornets by 8. So That's my expert opinion. That's why I don't really think that the Blazers would jump the Lakers, but it can't happen. It can't happen. And if it does, I'll eat my words. I promise. I promise. But LeBron James was out for an extended period of time because Friday's game would be the 1 day shy of the 6-week mark since the Atlanta Falcons game, the Atlanta Falcons. I was talking about football too much now. I'm thinking too much about it, but the Atlanta Hawks played the Lakers, and Atlanta Hawks forward Solomon Hill collided with LeBron James when he was trying to go for a loose ball and ended up landing on James' ankle. Totally not on purpose or anything like that, but kept James out for a while, and this was the longest period of time that LeBron has been away from the game of basketball. And at the time of the injury, the Lakers did have a number 2 record in the Western Conference, and LeBron was considered to be one of the front runners for MVP. Joel Embiid was also up there too, and Nikola Jokic was up there too, but LeBron was definitely going to be. Also, James Harden, I'll include James Harden in that conversation as well. He was really doing good things for the Brooklyn Nets, but I mean, the Lakers really lost all momentum as soon as LeBron went down, and before that, you had Anthony Davis go down against the game versus the Denver Nuggets, which was a huge blow to their team. But if you thought that was a big blow, I mean, the LeBron James injury was astronomical for the Lakers. But ever since then, the Lakers have lost 4 of their past 5 games and are 18-13 or 8-13 this season without James, who is averaging 25 points per game, almost 8 rebounds, 8 assists per game. And like I said, they now sit 5th in the West at 36-26. And this has a 1-game lead over the number 6 Dallas Mavericks and a 2-game lead over the number 7 Portland Trailblazers with only 10 games left in the regular season. And Andre Drummond, a new acquisition for the Los Angeles Lakers, reacted to what he thought about LeBron returning to the team would be like. And he said, "I don't think my brain can process the opportunities that will come from LeBron being on the floor," he said earlier this week. And when he does come back to the game, I'm sure he'll do great things that will impact everyone on the team. So with that, it definitely seems like Drummond's going to be excited playing alongside LeBron James, highly sought out as the best player in basketball history and the best player in our time. But with that, I mean, let's look at the Lakers' schedule and what opponents they will be facing up soon. Like I said, wrong team. That's the Phoenix Suns. But the Los Angeles Lakers, the rest of the season, what it looks like, they play Sacramento on Friday, April 30th. They play Toronto on Sunday, May 2nd. And then after that, they play Denver. They play the Clippers. They play Portland. And then they play Phoenix, New York, Houston, Indiana, and then New Orleans. Definitely not an easy schedule by any means necessary, but since the Lakers now have Anthony Davis and LeBron is coming back, supposedly on Friday, April 30th versus Sacramento, and if not that game, most likely will be Sunday, May 2nd versus Toronto. But when you look at the rest of their schedule, I mean, you're going to be facing Denver at home. That might be a 4 or 5 round matchup between Denver and the Lakers. The Denver Nuggets would have home court advantage throughout that series, so that would be big for their part. But after that, you're going to be at the L.A. Clippers arena, so basically your arena too, but it will be an away game, and the Clippers will host, so that will be an interesting game to watch. That will be Thursday, May 6th. I'm going to be evaluating how the Lakers really do against the Denver Nuggets the game before. And then after that, you're going to be playing against the Portland Trail Blazers the game after the Clippers. That'll also be a road game. Then after that, you're going to be facing the Phoenix Suns on Sunday, May 9th. And then after that, you're going to be facing a New York Knicks basketball team that have just been dominating the Eastern Conference and have been winning or have won 9 out of their last 10, I believe. Their one loss being to the Phoenix Suns and Chris Paul hitting that circus shot right there versus the New York Knicks and really putting a dagger in their win streak. And then after that, you kind of have easier games down the road. You have Houston, you have Indiana, which might be a tough game. That's in Indiana. And then you're facing a New Orleans Pelicans team who might be fighting for a playoff spot with that game. You never know. But with that, it's definitely going to be interesting to see how LeBron's impact will play for the Lakers in this next couple of games. Obviously, you have less than 10 games in this regular season. But you have that 5-game stretch against playoff teams. You have Denver, Clippers, Portland, the Suns, and the New York Knicks. So it's definitely going to be interesting. But some questions to come out of this: in my personal opinion, my expert professional opinion, I think that the Nuggets will play the Lakers, and a question that arises from that is how obviously will the series turn out. So, I'll be looking at that game versus Denver down the road. But when these two teams face each other, no matter what the Lakers face in the first round, I have them winning 100%. I think that when LeBron comes back healthy and AD comes back healthy, they'll be in good hands. They're going to be put to the test in these next couple of games, but when the playoffs do come around and when everything's said and done, I do believe that the Lakers will have the final say versus the Nuggets, just because I feel like Anthony Davis will do a good job kind of negating Nikola Jokic and really doing a good job defensively on him. And then obviously the Nuggets not having Jamal Murray on their team is definitely going to be very impactful. But the Nuggets, on the other hand, they do have an Aaron Gordon who they got off of free agency, and they do have a Michael Porter Jr. who has been in the conversation for most improved player of the year, but I think it 100% should go to Julius Randle, and I don't think there's another take or another opinion that can really overrule that, because when you look at the Knicks, they're 4th overall in the East. Randle has 100% led the way for that team and that franchise to really get back up to where they should be in the sports world. But I think that the Lakers win this matchup versus the Nuggets in the first round if it does happen. I think the Lakers. I think they win out. I think they might lose a maximum of 2 games on their in their next couple of games of the season towards the end of the year. If LeBron does come back versus Sacramento, I think they'll win. Versus Toronto, that he probably will come back. I have them winning. Then at home versus Denver, I think that will be a game that will be competitive for the most part, but I think the Lakers will win closely. And then you have the Clippers. The Clippers at their place will definitely be a tough game. You know, the Clippers have been doing a great job, you know, being consistent while all these players go out on their team, like a Patrick Beverley, like a Serge Ibaka, Kawhi Leonard and company. But they've done a really good job staying afloat in the West. I will give them that. They are 43-21 this season. There are 2 games, I'm looking at the wrong thing. They are, oh man, come on. The Clippers are 3 games behind the Utah Jazz for that number 1 overall spot. But at the same time, you also have the Phoenix Suns, who will be playing the Utah Jazz on Friday, I believe, or Saturday. And that game, if the Suns win, they will be taking the number one overall spot in the West. So with that, definitely some tough teams going against each other coming towards playoff time. When you look at the Western Conference and their playing tournament, like I said in my previous podcast, Trailblazers would play the Grizzlies and the Spurs would play the Warriors. I think the Blazers would beat the Grizzlies, and then the Warriors would find a way to beat the Spurs, and then Blazers beat the Warriors in that next game, and then as a result, the Warriors would play either what would be the Jazz right now, or the Suns, depending on how that game goes, and then the Trailblazers would either play the Jazz or the Suns, and right now they would play the Suns. So with that, that would be it for the third segment of today's podcast. LeBron James possibly returning to the Lakers lineup versus the Sacramento Kings on Friday. We'll see how that matchup goes, and if LeBron will play or if he will not play. Because right now, if they do lose that game, then the Dallas Mavericks do jump ahead of them for that number 5 overall spot, and could put the Lakers in a position where they could play a playing game. So you never know. But coming up next on the GSMC Sports Podcast, I'm going to be bringing you the NBA Power Rankings and what my teams are from 10 to 1. What teams have really been improving, what teams have moved up in the rankings, and what teams have moved down. That's coming up next on today's podcast.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's GSMCpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Hello and welcome to the final segment of today's GSMC Sports Podcast. I am your host, Nebyat, and thank you guys for sticking with me here on this podcast. And let's get into the final segment of today's podcast, and that is my NBA Power Rankings of the this week. And let's start off from number 10 all the way up to number 1. So number 10 on my this week's NBA Power Rankings. Number 10, I have the Los Angeles Lakers. I think that they're getting better as Anthony Davis is coming back into the lineup. And also LeBron is to join that team pretty soon here. So with that, looking at the past games for the Lakers, they've had tough losses against Washington, lost 2 tough games to Dallas, split a back-to-back with the Utah Jazz, but lost against Boston, beat Charlotte, lost to New York, beat Brooklyn. So it seems like, every win that they got, that means they got a loss. So with that, I think that they were doing a good job so far as to staying away from the play-in tournament. ever since LeBron and AD went down to injury. And I think Frank Vogel has done a good job with the group that he's had so far with Kyle Kuzma, Andre Drummond, Marcus Gasol, Dennis Schroeder, Montrezl Harrell and company, to really stay away from that playing game, like I said, and to really making sure that the Lakers are for sure in the playoffs. It's still a good thing, and the things that I look at in this power rankings, some other teams that I looked at that could crack the top 10 were the Atlanta Hawks and the Boston Celtics. The Boston Celtics obviously doing a good job throughout this month as to winning. They won against the Knicks, Timberwolves, Nuggets, Blazers, Lakers, Warriors, but kind of slowed down after that win versus the Warriors. They lost against the Bulls, but they won against the Suns after that. But then the game after the Suns, they lost against the Nets, they lost against the Hornets, and they had a bad loss against the Thunder. But won against the Hornets after that Thunder loss, and will play the Spurs on Friday. And with the Boston Celtics as well, they are teetering on that 6th overall spot, and the Miami Heat are currently tied with them for the for records. That is 33-30 for both of them. And if they do lose this game, then that means that Miami goes up to the 6th overall spot, and Boston falls down to the 7th overall spot, and Miami eluding the play-in tournament and Boston being in the play-in tournament. But also the Atlanta Hawks too, they have been doing well, but lost against the Sixers and lost against the Pistons. They will play the Sixers on Friday at Philadelphia, so that will be another interesting game to watch, considering the Lakers. The Sixers have been losing some games as well, but that's because that Ben Simmons, Tobias Harris, and Joel Embiid have been out for some of those games. And I'll get into that a little bit later in this segment, but right now the Lakers crack top 10 for me, moving into the playoffs. And then at number 9, I have the Dallas Mavericks. The Mavericks, like I said, with the Lakers, Dallas sweeping a 2-game set against the Lakers and winning 4 or 5 overall has moved them within striking distance of the Lakers. 2 games back as of this for the 5th seed in the West, that is. And Dallas has one of the easiest remaining schedules in the league right now. Adding to the hope they could climb another spot in the standings in the final 10 games. And with that, let's look at the remaining schedule for the Dallas Mavericks right now. The Mavericks' next game will be Saturday, May 1st against the Washington Wizards. After that, they'll be playing the Sacramento Kings, and then the Miami Heat, Brooklyn Nets. So those 2 games the 3 games against Washington, Miami, and Brooklyn, those 3 games would be the hardest games on their schedule. And then after the Brooklyn game, you play Cleveland twice, one at home, one at Cleveland, and then you play against Memphis, which Memphis is a tough team to play against. The last game that they played against was Wednesday, April 14th, and that was that Luka Doncic's 3-point floater over buzzer beater. I don't even know what to call that, but either way, that's a game winner. That's what I'm going to call it, and I'm definitely going to be excited to see those teams play against each other again. And then after the Memphis game, you have them playing against New Orleans, and then Toronto, and then they close out the season against Minnesota. So definitely playing against some of the worst teams in the league record-wise, against Cleveland, Sacramento, Minnesota. New Orleans is definitely up there as well, or down there, I should say. But teams like Washington, Miami, Brooklyn, and Memphis and Toronto should all be tough games for this Dallas Mavericks squad. But also another thing to look at if you're a Dallas Mavericks fan, I know Luka Doncic has been going off. He's been been on scoring prowess so far. Just having multiple triple doubles, multiple 20 plus scoring performances. But with that, he also does have 13 technicals in the season, and he's only 3 short of triggering automatic 1-game suspension. And if anyone knows what happened with that 2016 finals and how Draymond got suspended, he got that technical that gave him that automatic 1-game suspension. And a lot of people till this day say that if Draymond didn't get suspended, that they would win that series. And if you're a Mavericks fan, I'm telling you, you don't want Doncic to be running his mouth. The more he does is he three more technicals and he's already out of a game. And with that, if he gets that third technical in the playoffs, that could be that could determine how the series would go 100%. So that's something that you should be paying very close attention to if you're a Dallas Mavericks fan. But after that, at number 8, I have the New York Knicks. So with this, the Knicks have obviously have won 8 or 9 of their last 10 games. Their 9-game winning streak was snapped against the Suns after that Chris Paul, Hail Mary of a shot, being the wizard that he is, put a dagger in that win streak. And with this, the Knicks had the second best offense in the NBA with an offensive rating of 120.1. And the Knicks currently sit at the 4th seed in the East, and I don't think that that they would be going up or down in the standings. With the rest of their schedule right now, it's going to be a very, very tough schedule, and they're going to be having one of the toughest schedules in the league right now, closing out the season. And when you look at their schedule right now, they're going to be playing games. Their next game is going to be against the Rockets, but their next couple of games will be against Memphis. It's going to be at Memphis, at Denver, at Phoenix, at the Clippers, at the Lakers. So they're going to be having a 6-game Western road trip, starting with the Rockets and then closing out against the Los Angeles Lakers. So it's definitely going to be a very, very hard way to close out this season. But if the Knicks are able to grab some of these wins against the Nuggets, the Suns will be a great matchup. I'm sure that they're going to be looking for some bad blood against the Suns after they snap their 9-game winning streak on their home floor, that is. So I'm sure they would love to repay the favor and try to make sure Phoenix doesn't get that first overall seed. But we'll see how that game goes. And then obviously the Clippers and the Lakers are going to be tough with Kawhi and Paul George, and then Anthony Davis and LeBron James all being healthy. That is, will definitely be tough. And then the last 3 games of the season will be against San Antonio, Charlotte, and Boston. So with that, definitely one of the toughest ways to close out your season, but no one said it was going to be easy by any means. So we'll see if the Knicks hold on to that 4th overall seed. Next up at number 7, I have the Milwaukee Bucks. So with the Milwaukee Bucks, the Bucks recently took 2 games from the 76ers in the past week, but surrounded by losses to the Grizzlies, Suns, Hawks, and recently against the Rockets too. In which, in that game, Kevin Porter Jr. Pick up from the Cleveland Cavaliers, gift to them, so to say, dropped 50 points against them, and really exposed the Bucks in their perimeter defense, so to say. But with that, the Bucks currently sit 3rd overall in the East. They're not going to be going down to the 4th spot anytime soon unless they just lose out the rest of their games, which I will be very surprised at. But they're going to be playing the Bulls tonight. They will not, or they're going to be playing the Bulls on Friday. They're not going to have Giannis, or they're not going to have Dante DiVincenzo either. So they're going to be without 2 of their starters. And the rest of the schedule, they're going to be facing Brooklyn twice on a back-to-back. You have Washington, You have Houston, you have San Antonio, you have Orlando, Indiana. You're going against Miami, and then you're ending the season with Chicago. So not that easy of a schedule, but not that hard of a schedule either. Obviously, with Brooklyn in there twice, and you also have Miami in there. But the rest of the teams, this should all be wins for this Brooklyn Nets squad. But with that, the Bucks can let up against some of these teams like the Rockets or the Hawks. They lost to Phoenix in an overtime loss by 1 point, and then they got smoked by Memphis by 13 on the Bucks' home floor. That is. But in that stretch, I mean, they beat Philadelphia twice, so that's pretty good. But I'm pretty sure that the Sixers either didn't have Ben Simmons, Tobias Harris, or Joel Embiid during those games. Embiid was listed as healthy, and he did play along with Tobias Harris as well. Did play in that first matchup versus the Bucks, but with that second matchup versus the Bucks, let's see who was healthy and who was not. But with that second matchup, the Bucks won 132-94. They're certainly in a dominant fashion, but they did not have Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, or Tobias Harris in that game. So Bucks definitely did what they needed to do in that game. And then next up at the 6th overall spot, I have the Philadelphia 76ers. They won their last two games against the Hawks and Oklahoma City, but lost 4 straight before that to the Golden State Warriors, the Phoenix Suns, and they lost to the Bucks twice, like I previously said. But like I said, with the Bucks and their second win over the Sixers did not have Joel Embiid, Tobias Harris, or Ben Simmons playing in that second game, but Embiid and Tobias Harris were listed as healthy for that first game, and as a result, the scoring difference or the margin of the lead margin in those two games were completely different. But don't look too hard on those losses, but that is something to look at going into the playoffs, because the Bucks could jump the Sixers right now. The Sixers are at the 2 seed, so they're 3 games behind the Sixers. I mean, if the Sixers are able to lose out against certain teams, they're playing against the Hawks right now, but they're going to be playing San Antonio, Chicago, Houston, New Orleans, Detroit, Indiana, Miami, and Orlando twice. So it's definitely going to be hard for them to lose out in order for the Bucks to jump them. And then at the number 5 spot, I have the Denver Nuggets. Without Jamal Murray and Monte Morris out, now having Will Barton join them in street close, a lot more has been falling on PJ Dozier and Campazzo for the Denver Nuggets. So they're going to be having more to work with, or they're going to be having a lot more load on their shoulders. And also same thing with Nikola Jokic, just like he's done all year. Same with Michael Porter Jr. and Aaron Gordon and JaMychal Green and company. But there was some head scratching among fans when the Nuggets picked up Campazzo. But it was proven to be good considering that Murray went down and Monte Morris has been out for a while. The pickup has been necessary 100%, and in a season where every team seems to be battling injuries or illnesses with COVID, the Nuggets are 6-1 ever since that Murray injury. So Nuggets still at that 4th overall spot ever since Murray went down. And then next up at number 4, I have the Utah Jazz. With the Utah Jazz, the Jazz are 3-point bombers, so to say, and they take more threes a game than any team in NBA history, which is 43.5, and they hit 38.8% of them. And the Jazz still win almost 61% of their games when shooting below league average from three. That means worse than 36%. And in those games, Utah is 14-9, and that's the best in the NBA. And Utah fans are freaking out about the losses to the Timberwolves, and everyone's talking about that the Timberwolves are like the only team to beat the Jazz at home or whatever. But a couple of losses in the dog days of the season, and without Jamal Murray. Dog days just meaning towards the end of the year where you just need to rest people as much as they need to be. And they did that with the Lakers in that back-to-back against them, and they rested some of their players in that first game, and as a result they won the second game. So really smart coaching by the coaching staff down there in Utah. But with the Mitchell injury, there's no cause for panic. It happens. Don't worry, Utah Jazz fans. And then next up at number 3, you have the Clippers with Kawhi Leonard with a sore right foot, Patrick Beverley with a fractured left hand, and Serge Ibaka with a back injury, and they're all out of the lineup. And one would expect the Clippers to stumble a little, but the Los Angeles Clippers are 6-2 over the last couple of weeks with a +7 net rating and a top 10 offense and defense despite multiple injuries. Give credit where credit is due with Tyronn Lue and the Clippers coaching staff, along with Terrence Mann showing up as a player, and Reggie Jackson as well too, stepping up as a starter while Patrick Beverley is out, and as well as Paul George too. He's been very, very good for the Clippers despite how much slander or negativity Paul George gets. He has been playing well towards the end of this season, and right now Clippers sit 3rd overall in the West right now. Don't see them the Nuggets could jump them to the number 3 spot. I did not see that until talking about the Clippers, but the Nuggets are only a half game behind the Clippers for that 3rd overall spot, and the Nuggets will play the Clippers May 1st, so that will be a crucial game to watch. Definitely some seeding implications going on there. So with that, with the number 2 team in the NBA right now, I have the Phoenix Suns. Phoenix went on an impressive 3-2 ratio on a tough East Coast road trip, and now sits just one game back, stumbling Utah for the best record in the West and in the NBA. They beat the Clippers on Wednesday and will have the Jazz on Friday. So the Suns have been doing a lot recently and trying to get back up to the Suns that everyone knows and loves back when Amari Stoudemire, Steve Nash, and company were all together. And that was the last time. That was about 10 years ago, I believe, or something like that. When the Phoenix Suns were in the playoffs, and now they clinched the playoff spot, and now they're just trying to get that first overall spot and try to have home court advantage throughout the whole entire playoffs, not just the Western Conference playoffs, but the whole entire thing, including the finals. And then finally, the last team and the best team in the NBA right now are the Brooklyn Nets. Steve Nash, a legitimate coach of the year. His team is 40-20 right now, and in first place in the East with a plus .45 net rating and the best offense in the NBA. And despite injuries forcing constant lineup adjustments, Nash having to reach deep in his bench, and Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Kyrie Irving have only played just 7 games together. Nets are definitely the best team in the NBA right now. And Durant, I know I talked about him and his leg injury. I thought he would be out just a little bit more, but obviously coming back. And Durant stepped back onto the court after his thigh contusion and dropped 33 points on a good Suns team, looking like he never missed a step. And his versatility really makes the Nets offense really unstoppable. And when you add a Kyrie Irving and when you add a James Harden to that lineup, that's a championship roster right there. So with that, I thank you for listening to the GSMC Sports Podcast brought to you by GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask that you please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That really helps us. Also, if you can please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, that would be very appreciated. Thank you, and have a great rest of your week, ladies and gentlemen.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.